So, Alex, there's a logjam at defensive back. Got a lot of guys have played, a lot of guys have kind of fallen off the depth chart a little bit. Is that a good thing to have that many people competing for that few jobs, or how will you move forward and evaluate that?
Well, the magic word you said there was compete, and so the more bodies that you have, not just competing for starting spots, but competing for roles. Certainly is an important element of things. We didn't take a lot of stock in what's taken place in the past. That's the responsible thing to do. Open-minded for those guys, fresh start. Just like we expected them to have an open mind with our coaching staff, and so I took that approach. And like I said, it was a responsible thing to do. And then you add the younger group of the incoming freshmen into that competitive mix, and so there's probably more questions than answers at this point. As we go into fall camp, in the best case scenario, you got to establish, starters at every single one of your spots on defense. That doesn't happen very often, so this isn't unique. But I also think that it's imperative that our guys, on an individual basis, take stock in some of the moments they've been in and some of the stages that they've performed in, and I think it's on them to kind of go back to those moments from a confidence standpoint. So I've been in the arena, and so the more guys that have been in it, again, can be advantageous. So a lot of work to do, though.
Given your experience, would you rather have some safeties who really separate themselves, or you want that competition flowing back and forth?
Sure. I think in a perfect world that you say that these are our starters, and the gap is so wide that we would never take them off the field. We were so comfortable with that individual. And sometimes there's a little bit of fool's gold in that as a coach, because once that guy tweaks an ankle in practice, and all of a sudden that two comes in, and you say, well, that's not the guy that I thought we were going to have. And so, what you're trying to do is have 22 guys that can compete on your defense. Obviously more, best case scenario, but so I think. In terms of how do you feel, and no one cares how you feel as a coach, but how you feel as a coach, you'd like to have established guys that walking out there on the first rep of a series, but take advantage of the fact when maybe that you don't, and then the competition is such that multiple guys could fill that role, and the other side of that too is the benefit is you got more guys having a viable role on your defense. Now, again, we won't take the starter out to put someone in that's not competing at that same level, and so that's ultimately what we're working towards, is get as many guys on the defense to be in that mix to have again be quote unquote be in the depth. So guys that not on the depth chart as a 1 or a 2 or a 3. Okay, I'm a 2 on the depth chart. Well, if we want to put you in the game, I wouldn't call yourself a 2. That's called being there by default. So the more guys we have in the depth, truly in the depth that we use on Saturdays, the better off we'll be.
Gary?
Alex, just going through spring, you only have a certain amount of bodies. I know, especially defensive backs, you talked about how light you were there. What does it mean now, just having a full class coming in now, being able to go through fall camp?
Well, sure, and I think number one would be competition. You have more guys. There's that element of you eliminate the survival element in practice, where it's okay just to survive a given drill, a given a 7-on-7 period, an 11-on-11 period, and why can't you survive it? Because you're not performing up to a certain level. There's another guy we can bring in for you, and a legitimate guy that we can bring in for you. There's shot fakes in basketball, where there's head fakes in football too. Is when you take a guy out and you put someone in that he knows and is not capable of executing at a given level, then it's not true competition that way. And so I think that's good. I mean, I think as we move forward into camp, having a full slate of guys from a health standpoint, and obviously given the young guys coming in, that'll be advantageous for us.
Jenny Carlson.
Hey, Alex, at one point in the spring, you mentioned that you could tattoo the defensive pass rank on your guys. You would.
I didn't actually mean that, but.
I know, but the criticism, you were pretty blunt when you felt like there was criticism with your guys.
Sure.
I assume that if you were like that with us, you were like that with them, being pretty honest. So why I mean, they're obviously aware of the struggles. Why do that, and how'd you balance that through the spring, and how will you balance it this season?
Sure, and I think at this point, as you go into fall, start now is what's done is done. We can't have any impact on that. I think we did workouts. Coach Wiley in the weight room did workouts that from a rep count standpoint added up to 129 as a reminder. And I think again as we flip the page and the calendar goes on to August, it's on to 2019, and so that no longer will be the emphasis. But I think it's just serves as a reminder that it's difficult to play defense in 2019. You're one play away from being average. The nice thing about playing the type of offense that we do on a day-to-day basis is you really get a good evaluation in terms of where you're at. But really, as much as anything, how we use that in the spring was just a constant reminder of why that rep's important, why that rep in individuals important, why that rep in a one-on-one period is important, why that rep. And now, again, you're not going to have success on every single rep, but point being, are you getting the necessary feedback to be better the following one? And then on as you go through the course of a day. And so you can use motivation a number of different ways. Obviously, we err on the side of being positive, but that certainly is one. I think just as competitors, you're trying to kind of dig at their soul in terms of help them keep them motivated as to why a day in April is so important to our success.
He said it was hard. You got to be real with the guys. Did you feel like that as a new coach?
Well, it is. It's a results business. And so we can say we're getting better, and we can, very, very easy as a coach, you can walk off the practice field every single day and feel great. I mean, you can convince you can tell yourself the right story. We're getting better, and oh, by the way, everybody else in the country is getting better. That Tuesday practice in the spring when we say we're a better defense at Oklahoma than we were the previous Tuesday. Well, every offense in the country is better that Tuesday than they were the previous Tuesday. So you got to make sure that you're dealing in realism, type of deal, and they know that, and we as coaches know that. We got to be willing to say it's a tough day. We got to be willing to say it's not good enough, and to this point that they've kind of come to the realization that we're willing to do those things, and I think for the most part they've responded to that.
Jason Kersey.
Yeah. Hey, Alex. You coming into this season as opposed to last season when you were not running the whole defense yourself, do you feel reinvigorated this fall? Do you feel different coming in knowing you're back in control of the defense completely?
No, I was pretty invigorated a season ago. But the one thing that when your role changes, and I'll say this: when your role changes, you kind of you try to be a star at the given role that you're in at that time. But the thing I will say I found out, as much as I like football, I like leading, and so the opportunity. I guess go real big picture on this. When Coach Riley called and said you have an opportunity to run the defense at Oklahoma, that's one, if not the reason, you jump at it.
Okay, Cliff Brunt.
Yeah, Coach, obviously team struggled last year defensively. Most of those guys are back. In this day and age, especially with social media and the negativity that comes at them, how have you gone about instilling confidence in these guys going forward?
Well, and it's a great point, and the negativity never goes away. It's the best highlight or headline that you'll ever read is the negative one, and we're all drawn to that. And obviously, to think that our guys are somehow caught in a bubble that they don't see it or hear it or feel it would be naive on our part. And so it's kind of back to talking about dealing in realism. The outside world doesn't see the summer workout on a Monday morning. And they don't see that progress, but we as coaches do, and so it's important for us to highlight it. If we're going to get a true evaluation of guys, we have to be very honest when it is the way we want it. because we're going to be very honest when it's not the way that we want it. And you just go through it, and we find the numbers that fit the story that we need to tell. The success rate in one-on-ones, the success rate in 7-on-7, the success rate in team. And when it's not good enough, we're going to use those numbers to our advantage as well. So I think that's the biggest thing, especially until you're playing true Saturday games. That there's a scoreboard, it counts, and obviously you evaluate those things a whole lot different than you do an off season. But again, being honest about the good as much as anything else. And there's been enough good to get excited about. Not enough to say we're ready to play a football game today, though.
Okay, Tyler Palmatier.
Alex, Neville lost a lot of weight in the spring. That was noticeable. And Calvin Thibodeau said, Neville was a really quick guy even before he lost all that weight. So he kind of said it's not a huge difference for him. But have you ever heard, has there been criticism against the defense that you run because defensive linemen are so light? And what's the biggest thing that you think people will notice when they watch this lighter, kind of looser defensive line play this fall?
Yeah, it may be a little bit overstated with some of the guys in terms of weight loss. I mean, I would say, a 320-pound defensive lineman in this area of college football better still be able to make a play in space, and so, you want big guys, but you want big guys that can run. And so, but our confidence stems from in this scheme is when I was at the University of Missouri, we're in the SEC, and we were too small to compete in the SEC, and then we ended up having 2 SEC Defensive Players of the Year. We're undersized defensive linemen, so you take that scheme, the core of that scheme. Dave Steckel's the defensive coordinator, Gary Pinkel's the head coach, took the core of that scheme out to Washington State, and we had the Defensive Player of the Year, was a undersized defensive lineman for us there. And so when you walk into Oklahoma, this isn't just, let's try and see if we can get small and be faster and all those things. So there's a track record there of those type of guys having success. But certainly what we're trying to accomplish, just like everybody else, is big speed as much as we possibly can get. But to put on girth, again, I use the term fool's gold. Sometimes that can be one as well as coaches. If we're just big, it's easy to get big. It's a lot harder to have big guys moving around and making plays in the backfield.
That being said, I know you haven't seen guys. Maybe you'll notice it more here in a few weeks. But how are those defensive linemen tracking as far as what you want to see? You mentioned the players in the past. I mean,
sure.
In terms of moving and making plays in space.
Right, and I think when we charted all those things in spring, obviously you can't sack a quarterback in spring, so we're a little bit liberal when we say we sack the quarterback. I don't know if we got Jalen to the ground in a real world situation type of thing, but in any event, TFLs and those things, and so you see some progress being made, but when you do those things and you ask those guys to be productive and play fast, there's no hiding in the scheme either. If you're not making plays and you're just sitting at the line of scrimmage, then obviously that's going to show as well. But I think they're moving in the summer, moving in the spring. I think you're seeing signs of it, and obviously we'll continue to progress. And Coach Tibbs does a phenomenal job with those guys, and so probably as much as anybody, been really impressed with that group. Whatever it's, I guess buy-in would be the best way to describe it, because you're asking them to do something maybe they didn't do in the past, and it was okay to be a little bit heavier, and anybody trying to lose weight, it's not the easiest thing in the world. So in any event, I've been pleased with that.
Eric Bailey.
Coach, Jalen Redmond, given his health situation, how much were you able to build a rapport with him, just get to know him, and how much are you looking forward to really get a chance to evaluate him on the field?
Well, I'm certainly excited. You talk about big speed. I mean, he falls into obviously that category, and that's about the extent of what I've seen from him. I haven't seen the football player yet, with a true evaluation. So we're excited to get him out there in fall camp. By all indication, we'll be able to do that from a health standpoint. Things have checked out. So no, it's another guy to add to the mix up front, and I think he's itching to do just that. But no, there's a guy, you're going through practices, you're going through meetings, and there's this guy over there in the corner, on the side of the room you don't get to spend as much time with, don't get a chance as much time to evaluate him, and not that you're cast to the side as an injured player, but you're not as involved in all the workouts and those things. So it was good this summer to get him back out with the guys. I'm sure he's itching to get back out there here when practice starts.
Alex, now that you've had a couple months to be on the road recruiting, what's been the biggest challenge trying to attract elite defensive recruits to OU, especially after the last couple of years?
Well, number one, we got a tremendous product here. I mean, you're talking about, and I'll say it as long as they allow me to coach at Oklahoma, this is 1% in terms of the programs in college football. It's easy to name off stats and all those things, but most people don't have what we have. You want from a historical standpoint, and then also currently, there's some people there's an era in their programs that they were able to accomplish certain level of whether it's championship caliber football or individual awards and those things, and a lot of places it's eras in the past. Well, that actually is also the case here, but then there's an era after that one, and an era after that one. Oh, by the way, we're currently under elite leadership at Oklahoma, so believe me, there's a lot to sell. The problem, I think, when anytime you take over is you're really reduced to every other coach out there, and that it's just words, it's just talk, it's not tangible, it's not real yet. And so you say, this is what we're going to do, which again, every coach in the country can say what we're going to do. At that moment, you're a politician. And nothing against a politician, but you can say basically you can say whatever you want to say, and obviously you highlight some of your history, but the logos are different. It doesn't feel as tangible as actually going out there and doing it. So that's critical for us to show. Number one, our fan base, but number two, or 1A, 1B is showing these recruits that there's a product on the field that they want to be a part of.
Okay, we're going to go to Aaron.
Yeah, Alex, just asking Lincoln about the challenge a coordinator faces and coming to a place like this, and any place for that matter, but prioritizing changing scheme versus changing attitude and mentality, and he landed on mentality is very, very critical, more so than the scheme. How is that going with you and your guys at this point?
Well, I think it's going good, but again, that scoreboard isn't real yet, and so that's something that's always ongoing. But yeah, when you take over, what do you change? It's easy to change a call. Again, the scheme stuff a lot of times is the easiest thing to change because it's just checkers, it's X's and O's and all those things. It's a little bit harder to change the hearts and the minds of the guys and all that. So I think what you're seeing just as you go through spring. I think you saw a little bit more of a confident group. I think you saw a little bit of guys that have an understanding that, what we're practicing on a day-to-day basis, what we ultimately be asked to execute in the fall. They gain confidence. That means that meeting becomes more important when you understand that this isn't just what we're doing in spring, and then in fall we'll actually really install the stuff. And then subsequently as we go into fall camp, that tomorrow morning's practice is the same stuff we'll be repping week 5 of the season, 7, on and on and on. And so in any event, then every day becomes a little bit more important to the guys, which helps from that standpoint. But it's attitudes. It's believing in each other. It's trusting coaches. It's trusting each other. It turns out, with all those facets, it's a hard job to change all those things in a short period of time. Can you get everything done in 7 months? But you need to. You don't get graded on a curve. No one cares that it's the first year of the defense, and so that's one of the messages to the guys is we don't get a free pass because we changed scheme. And so in any event, but no, mentality is critical. The scheme doesn't work. There's not a good call. There's not a good call if we don't play the game the right way, or when things get tough, we cave. And so all those things are something we constantly work on a day-to-day basis.
We've got time for 2 more questions. We do have some players who are starting to filter into the room. They're available now. Let's go to Dean.
Coach, as remarkable as the offense has been, when the name Oklahoma comes up, there's not much talk about the offense. It's always about, what about that defense? What's the true potential of your defense to make significant improvement this year?
Well, I think you say what's the standard at Oklahoma, and I said this when I first got here, is what the standard at Oklahoma is to be the absolute best, and I don't think a football program runs the way it's supposed to run if you start saying, okay, we're going to be average on special teams, we're going to be elite on offense, we'll be pretty good on defense, and you kind of start moving the needle or moving the expectations based on who your quarterback is that year, or we graduated these guys, so this year if we struggle, it's okay. Really don't deal in potential. The expectation here is to have an elite defense. The country's not going to care that we're installing new. The expectation in Oklahoma is to compete and win championships. In order to do so, we feel like you got to have an elite defense to do that, and so that's what we're striving towards.
We're going to wrap with
Just one, where do you envision Buki playing at this year?
Buki would be a nickel. Yep.
And with Derek King and Dana waiting for you guys at the end of camp, is there even a more sense of urgency to kind of get things going in the right direction?
Well, and quality opponent right out the gate, and one that won't take it easy on you. I mean, you know from play in, play out, they expect to have success offensively. They're going to be very certainly high-powered and a talented group. And by the way, you don't know exactly what they're going to be running because there's newness down there. You kind of take stock in what's in the past. So it will be a major challenge for us, and so we got to take advantage of these next whatever it is 30 days.